been bored as fuck. I'm looking at this shit like, damn, dude, that shit probably was popping and everything, man.
But you know, the funny thing about that statement is, in 2021, I had a lot of people that came up to me, like even like somebody in the industry was like, I never knew what these shows were until I randomly went on IG and like I saw a post and they were like, a lot of them were from you, and I basically got put on to what this whole thing was because I saw you post about it, and that's how I learned about the industry and all these events because they saw me, and I was like, I'm like, wow, like that's crazy because I'm not even thinking I got that sort of reach where people is finding out about events just because I'm posting about it.
Yeah, because the thing of it is that, like I said, it's because even just like when you have those photographers that do like the big awards, the Oscars and stuff like that, it's like you are that for porn. You feel what I'm saying? You are the shit, dude. You could dance too. If it was back in the day, you probably had to get the record button. Here we go. We recording. Yes, we recording now. So, all right, now, damn, I don't know where the hell we're going to go from now because we talked about, okay, we're going to start at this point. You were saying that the X3 was the go-between the Exxoticas and the AVN, and I'm going to let you go from there, and I'm going to shut up. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bridge because with one convention, you get in like the full blown, everybody's coming out, all the industry people is coming out, independent creators and all of that. And then you get Exxxotica, which Exxxotica is really like the independent porn shows because it's all about the fans. But then also Exxxotica allows a lot of smaller creators to come out and like display themselves. And one thing you'll notice about like AVN or even the same thing with like X3 is that if you're like a fan of BBWs, then those are not the conventions for you because you're not going to get a lot of that there. You're going to get a ton of that at Exxxotica, but you're not going to get any of that really at AVN or X3.
Now explain why is that? Why is that?
I think because the studios, the major studios, like a lot of BBW performers, sometimes they'll mention like certain studios that they feel like are major, and they're not even like studios. They're really like just websites, that they call studios. I'm like, no, but the difference between a website and a studio is that somebody can have the studio and their, a website or whatever. And, they got a website and they put content on the website. Somebody that has a studio generally has like offices. Like they got offices and buildings and all this other stuff that is way more elaborate than a website. So a lot of the BBW sites are just websites. A lot of the bigger companies are studios where they have offices and they got all this stuff. And so for them, they really only focus on a certain type of woman because they feel like that's their fan base and that's what's going to sell for them. And
so it's
they don't.
So it's basically let's say Hollywood mainstream porn talent and companies. Pretty much it was at this one. And then with the Exxxotica, it's more about the independent than that of the mainstream studio or what have you. Period. And which actually makes sense because one, what the X3 was what in LA?
Yeah, it was in LA.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I mean, it's in Hollywood, an earshot of fucking Silicon Valley. So plus it's attached to XBIZ, which is one of the top, if not number one or number two media outlet in the world when it comes to porn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like I said, I was just going through your stuff, man, and like I see you had what's her name, Osa Lovely. How was it meeting her, or what have you, and taking her picture?
That's funny. It's like I've definitely like been around her before, but sometimes when you go to certain shows, like especially like Exxxotica, a lot of people will be like hidden away in a corner because they don't really get to pick where they sit. So you'll meet somebody at a show and then you can't find them on the show floor anymore because they might have went up to go get like some food or something. So you don't really know where they at. And there, I knew where she was at because she was right close to the Brazzers booth. And like Angela White had such a long line, it was hard to get people that were like on the outside of her line because it was like wrapping around. So she was, she was super cool though. Like when I first saw her, she was getting ready and everything, so I didn't really get no chance to take photos. But then once I came back a couple hours later, when she was all like settled and everything, then I got an opportunity to actually like talk to her and get some photos.
So it's like as many of the talent when you walk up to them, well, especially compared to before and now, how is it different now? Because I know that it's like some of them might have been kind of standoffish or what have you when you first met them, like let's say a year ago or what have you, or as the Exxxotica, or you know what I'm saying, for when you first got the business, you know what I'm saying, paint the picture of how it's been like a transition to where it's they know you and they comfortable when you come around. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the difference is now when they talk to me, they talk to me like one of them as opposed to just like some random guy coming from out of nowhere with a camera that's like, I want to take photos. So they'll speak to me like the guy that's in the room and that's like, oh, yeah, like he knows us, like we've done stuff with him, we've taken photos, he might have like shot something for us. They treat me like, okay, like we expect to see you here. Like if you're not here, we'd be surprised if you weren't here because we expect you to be at this event because it's an industry event and we see you at every event, like, multiple times a year. So now it's like they expect to see me there. And they also talk to me more like a person as opposed to like, hey, how you doing? Like you're a fan, like you trying to like buy this DVD or it's nice to meet you. They talk to me more like just a regular everyday person.
Which I know feels pretty good at the same time, but also at the same token, you don't geek out in the moment. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah, that's
like
not really my thing.
because to me, even to the point that it's like a star wants to be treated as if they're regular anyway.
Yeah.
Period. So, and you get more out of them if you do it that way. Do you think that they're like, when you look at other people that are doing what you're doing on the floors, do you see some of the mistakes that cats make that hurt them from possibly, achieving opportunities with working with talent? Because I know from off the strip of you being on the floor, a lot of times it also helps you connect with talent to where you work with them outside of it.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people don't understand. Like when you first come to something, you could totally be a fan and not know anybody. But once you finally get your foot in the door and people start knowing you, you got to have that mindset that like now everything you do is kind of like publicly being watched, and you have to understand that there are eyes on you. If you turn out to be like a sleazeball or somebody that's going to be like, oh, he's kind of creepy, somebody else is going to tell someone that you're creepy. And you got to be aware that they're going to speak to other people about your behavior and who you are. And you got to learn when it's like, now my actions are being watched. Let me not just walk around and look overly like thirsty or desperate to get somebody's attention.
Yeah, because it does makes a whole difference. Because, like, even to the point, because a lot of people don't realize some of these girls be like, they be nervous. They already on edge when they're at these damn conventions because they be probably because even how are the fans like at this convention versus the other convention? Because this was the first one where they allow fans to come in.
I think this is the first show that I've ever seen, but it was like no incident. But it wasn't like some weird ass fan that was like caught touching somebody they weren't supposed to, or they were being like inappropriate. I think it's like the first convention where that didn't happen at. And the reason it happens to me, especially at like Exxxotica, is because Exxxotica for the most part has too many booths where there's too much like free space around. So it's not like if somebody tries to do something, there's like a million eyes on them because there's too much space for them to be able to like do something and nobody will really notice. And then they're telling stories like, oh, this look what so-and-so tried to do. But you don't necessarily notice because if you got a booth in the back, but there's no other booths around you for like 50 feet, nobody's really paying attention except whoever you got at your booth. And then by the time you say something, that person then walked off in a crowd of other people. So with this event being so closed in with the space, You can't do that sort of thing. Like anything you do, somebody's gonna